future trends, deep insights, industry leaders. This is the iGaming Next podcast with your host, Karolina Pelc.
Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to another podcast for iGaming Next. My name is Karolina Pelc. I'm a gaming consultant and a founder and CEO of SharedPlay. Today, I've got with me Steve Birch, the CEO of Sky Betting and Gaming. Hi, Steve.
Good afternoon. How are you?
Very good. Thank you. Thank you very much for taking the time to come and be featured on the podcast. We have never actually met personally, so even more so, I'm grateful you took the invitation. And I wanted to take this opportunity to chat to you about some recent blog posts I've been reading and in general about your inspirational career journey. But before I get to that, I'd like to give a brief introduction for those who might not be aware of your full career journey. So Steve is the CEO of Sky Betting and Gaming, currently concluding his 14th year serving the company. Having joined as an analyst, he has subsequently worked in insights, program management, marketing, and leadership roles before being appointed as the CEO in 2020. He has joined when the company consisted of just 350 people, whereas now the organization is over 1,500 strong, and Sky Bet and Sky Vegas are the most popular betting and gaming brands in UK. So yeah, this is where I wanted to start. 14 years. What an impressive, stunning career at one organization. Can you tell us a little bit more about how you joined? I believe this was your first job out of university. Why the company? Why the industry? And how did this develop to where you are now?
Yeah, I'm glad you knew it was 14 years. I lost count the other day. I couldn't quite work out how many years it was. So why the industry? I've always had an interest in betting. I've got my uncle to thank for that. He's a bit of a horse race bettor, and he used to do a little bit of arbitrage betting on the spreads, actually, when the spreads used to come out in the racing post. So he did want to show me how you could do arbitrage betting. I think actually on my 18th birthday he showed me that. So trying to take me down a betting path. I didn't really seek out the exact opportunity. I moved to Leeds after I'd been travelling after uni and was looking around for jobs. I've got a degree in maths, so I was looking at various different analytical roles, and fortunately a little bookmaker that I'd not really heard of had a vacancy, so I applied and got the job. And obviously back then, as you said, it was about 350 people, and we were based actually in Harrogate. We moved to Leeds sort of 4 or 5 years later, but yeah, at the time we were based in Leafy, Harrogate. So I'd always had an interest in betting, but I'd not really heard of Sky Bet. Didn't have Sky in our house, so it was I had to do a little bit of research on who Sky Bet actually were at the time.
I don't think there's many people who haven't heard of Sky Bet these days, so that just shows the reach of the organization. And in terms of sort of your career progression, were there any pivotal moments where you started to realize, yeah, I can see my future in this company. This is where I want to be. Any mentors that specifically sort of pushed you forward and championed you to become the executive leadership role that you hold now?
Yeah, so definitely different moments when I guess I realised I was adding value and could make a difference. So I was at a few different levels and a few different times. But I do remember sort of as an analyst, I've been there a couple of years, and I realised that actually the culture in the business meant that if you had an idea and you could back up why your idea was the right thing to do, like that would happen, and that's a really exciting feeling. And sort of got more into that idea, and ultimately that's why I made the switch from being an analyst to I guess from program management into the marketing role. Was I guess I wanted to have the ultimate accountability for putting some of those things into process. So yeah, it was definitely knowing I could get things done and realizing it was a business where you could get things done, and just the excitement. It's different every day. The fact that there's a good link back to sport, or kind of on a Friday night you're interested in how the gaming numbers are performing. There's always something to I guess to get involved in and think about. In terms of mentors, I've definitely been really lucky. There's not been many CEOs at Sky Betting and Gaming over the last 14 years, but I've obviously been lucky to work with all those. So definitely Richard Flint, obviously an inspirational figure around gambling, and definitely made time for me during my career. And then sort of more recently, had a good 2 years working for Ian Proctor as the CEO. So when we were under our Stars group ownership, Ian was the CEO of Sky Betting Gaming, and I've learned a lot over the years for me, and it's definitely something that's looked after me. My boss for quite a few years was the managing director for sports, Ted Moss, someone who really pushed me and drove me to improve, and definitely looked after me in my career. And then most recently, Conor Grant. So he's now the CEO of the UK and Ireland division for Flutter, and I've worked for a number of years at Sky Betting Gaming, and always been a big support actually throughout the last 10 years since he joined the organisation. He's definitely a man who looks out and sees the best in people, and has looked after not just me but like various people through their careers. So yeah, I've been lucky to have some really good mentors, and actually, to be honest, like most recently since I've been the CEO, just having I've got a great team. So my management team are great. They really push me, challenge me, can rely on for them to keep pushing me in the business on. So that's it's always good to be surrounded by good people. And definitely been lucky throughout my whole career at Sky Betting Gaming to have that.
I think it's really inspirational, and I respect companies that promote from within, because usually when someone joins in such a high-level position, there's this first 100 days getting to know the business, getting to know the culture, getting to know the people, whereas you can skip all of that because you've done 14 years of that. And I also think it helps you deal with your management on a partnership level, because they know you so well, you know them so well, so there isn't that hierarchical challenge there. So again, really inspirational. And you've taken over the role just 10 months ago, and already now you've been ranked I think it was number 21 in the prestigious top CEOs in UK Employer Choice Awards from Glassdoor. What do you think makes you the leader that people so quickly warmed up to, voted for? Because this is a people's first sort of award where your employees are voting. So without sort of putting you on the spot, what do you think makes you such a great CEO, such a great leader?
Yeah, I feel a little bit embarrassed by it, actually. I guess I didn't take the job to get awards, and it's definitely not just my award either. So took over the business in great shape. Obviously, coming through the pandemic and a change of ownership, the great job that Ian Proctor had done and Conor Grant as COO, particularly, had helped make sure the business was in a great shape. And then since I took over, obviously, I already mentioned my senior team, but they've done a great job to help make sure the momentum's carrying on in the business. So definitely could not have done it without them. And we do have a people focus in the business, but that's sort of top down, I guess. Everyone from my senior team down to junior managers are really focused on people, and that's what I think. That's what makes it a great place to work. And ultimately, I think that's why I was able to hit the ground running throughout these 10 months. Is because we genuinely are people first, and all the line managers live and breathe that.
Yeah. But at the same time, you've had many years of preparation. You know the business and people inside out. But I don't think there's anything that could have prepared you for the year that we've had. You've taken over in probably one of the most challenging years in bookmakers history, with the challenges from the pandemic. So I asked this question to Ulrich, and I know many people are interested. When the pandemic first hit and the event started to unfolding that sports will be cancelled, lockdowns and so on, what were your very first thoughts and actions, and how did you react to that challenge, being presented with that challenge?
Yes, obviously when the pandemic first hit back in March, just after Cheltenham it was that we I guess all left the office. I was actually the managing director for the sports business at the time. But as a senior team, we had the discussions on what we were going to do, and Ian Proctor, the CEO at the time, was very clear that it was all about looking after staff's well-being, looking after staff's jobs, and then making sure we did the right thing for customers. And so we focused on those three things to get us through. It was definitely a very weird time working out how we were going to keep running the business, how we were going to look after staff. Sort of went through a series of getting more kit out. First of all, it was getting more kit out to people. It was making sure people felt okay, felt they could do the jobs. We had some it was really tricky for a lot of our in-play trading staff and CX staff, where particularly young workforce, mostly based around Leeds City Centre. So we're having to work out of small bedrooms in shared flats, which wasn't ideal. So we sent sent desks and chairs out to various people in those first few weeks to make sure people were able to have the best comfort to work in. And obviously, it was weird, particularly running the sports side of the business, because the first couple of months there wasn't any sport, was there? So it was a case of, I guess, supporting the gaming team, and then also working out when sport came back, how it was going to come back, and making sure that we were going to, I guess, maximise the opportunity of sport coming back without doing anything that was going to put customers at particular harm. So we were very careful throughout those months on gaming, and also on sports as sport returned, that we were looking after customers and making sure that the pandemic wasn't changing customer behaviour too much.
And how about has the organization changed since then? You've recently completed the project of the new office, and I've seen that the Euros, a lot of staff was already in the office. They were being supported from the office. So how are the people working now? Is it a hybrid? What's your policy about getting back to the office, working from home, and so on?
Yeah, so we've been very lucky that we've got a brand new office building to move into. So the office is just about ready to open. I think officially we'll start to get staff working in next week. The training team did a great job and managed to trade the Euros final from the office, but there's still a few gremlins to iron out, so we're not quite back in. But yeah, so what we're going for, and we think our future, so this is for Sky Betting Gaming and for the wider Flutter Group, will be hybrid. So we trust our staff. We want to give as much flexibility as possible. And so we're going to let staff decide how much they come into the office and how much they work at home, and they'll work with their line managers and their teams to work out what works best for them. And in addition to that, because we do have staff who don't feel comfortable to come back yet, we're not forcing anybody to come back in at all if they don't want to until after Christmas. So we've definitely got a few months of people to, I guess, get used to life and see what life's like as we're coming out of the pandemic. So yeah, so it's definitely going to be an interesting period. I do think it's going to be working in a hybrid world. Although there's definitely advantages of flexibility, I think it is going to be harder actually than having everyone at home. I think there's different dynamic in meetings. You've got to be very disciplined about how you do a meeting, so people who aren't in the office don't get a worse experience. We've got to look at how to make sure that we're not giving opportunities to people who are in the office more than people who are working at home. It's obviously it's our choice to give flexibility, so we want to make sure that that doesn't change the opportunity that everybody's got from taking advantage of that.
And as you said, working from home is great. It gives certain advantages, but it also has some downsides. And you've been vocal about the impact on mental health from working from home. So without making it too personal, how did you find working from home? In a senior leadership position, having to manage cross-functional departments, and what is the impact that you talked about?
Yes, it's definitely harder to get some things done. It's harder to read rooms. It's harder to almost like get in the moment feedback when you're doing presentations, because you're just staring at a screen, aren't you all? And presenting to a few hundred people, if you're in the office, you definitely get a read for, has your message landed? How has it landed? How are people feeling? You just don't get that, which definitely makes it tough. I think it's been harder to do idea sessions, and I guess some of the tougher sessions on planning that we've done have definitely been a lot harder on Zoom. We've done a few now back in the office, and it's just reminds you of how much easier it is to do some things face to face. That said, I know lots of people, like me included, benefit from the flexibility that, like, being at home. I had a baby during lockdown, so I've got a
congratulations
9 months old. Thank you. But that was like much easier and great to be at home to support and see her a lot more than I would have done. So that's definitely been an advantage. I think for staff and for me as well. In the UK, there's a lockdown in January, so our third lockdown, and that was definitely tough. January is always a bit of a bleak month anyway, particularly with the weather in the UK is a little bit dull. The excitement of Christmas has gone, and then that was compounded by there was nothing to do and people were homeschooling. So that definitely January, February was really, really tough for staff. I was lucky I'd have to homeschool, but particularly for people who were homeschooling, it was even tougher. So the fact that we got through January and February sort of unscathed with good business momentum, still getting things done, and staff still engaged in the business and feeling okay was definitely a massive achievement.
What a year to be a CEO! Pandemic, post merger, and having a baby.
It's definitely been a good learning year.
And that your approach to general working from home and this whole remote working culture is quite structured. I've seen some blog posts about the goal to onboard 500 people remotely. So it's not just that you're doing by gut feel. You guys are prepared and you really sort of have a methodology to this. Is this something you can tell us a little bit more about? Is there any difference in onboarding employees and bringing them sort of in line with vision and feeling part of the company?
Yes, we've obviously that great effort from our talent acquisition and people team to onboard that many people, and obviously get the kit sent out to them. It's definitely got its own challenges. It's hard enough having new starters and getting everything set up when you're in the office. So it's been a great effort to get all the new starters we've had through the door and involved. The feedback actually from the new starters has been good. The feedback's been that they can feel the business's culture even in a virtual Zoom world. So obviously, line managers have done a great job of getting people invested and really understanding about the business. What we've got now actually is our new building opens, though, is like a whole plan of getting people back in. So we've taken the last 2 weeks just to run office tours. So over the last 2 weeks, you could book on and do a tour of the office, because obviously we've got all these new people who've never met anybody from Sky Betting Gaming, and even existing staff have never been to our new building. So this week actually is an open week where you can go in with your family. So we've got some kids entertainers kicking around the office this week. So that's quite nice. So people can bring their families in to see where their parents work, which will be, I think, it's quite nice touch.
It comes across as a really friendly and open-minded company culture. I know that you have been handing out to your employees a book called Start with a Why from Simon Sinek. Is this sort of part of a wider culture initiative across Sky Betting and Gaming and Flutter, or just Sky? Why the book, and what is it supposed to? What is it introducing your employees to?
So there's a few different books actually that get sent out. So I think there's a few options that go out to staff. I guess two things really. There's we're big on, we want to develop our staff. We've got a good, I'm a great example, and I've been a beneficiary of it. We've got we've got some great success stories of internal promotion. So we really want to focus on developing people and growing people. So that's part of the reason. And then also we're a curious business. We don't do anything if we don't understand why. Definitely one of our cultural things, which is it's now causes jokes from some of my new Paddy Power and Betfair colleagues, that Sky Betting Game will always ask why. We won't just commit to do something. We'll always want to understand exactly why. And that's great. I think the day that I don't get challenged and people ask me why I want to do something or why we should be doing something, I think we've failed, and we've probably lost the culture. So it's definitely a great a trait that I love, and although sometimes it makes it harder for me to ask for things to happen, it's definitely something that is core to how Sky Betting Gaming operates.
And just to kind of close off the culture subjects, another thing that is high on your agenda and Sky Gaming is pushing is building an inclusive working environment. Obviously, I'm a big ambassador for gender diversity, but there's more and more talk about sort of inclusiveness for people of color and not just focusing on gender. There has been so many amazing initiatives at Sky over the years, but particularly in the last year, I've seen quite a few. Could you tell us a little bit more about, where do you fit into the picture of creating all those initiatives, and which ones are the ones that you feel really proud of and you'd like to highlight?
So sort of the start of this and why we're doing it is definitely I'll start with a why. So apart from it being the right thing to do and being an important thing in society, we also completely buy into the business benefits of having a diverse workforce. We just know we'll be better at innovation. We know we'll come up with better ideas, and ultimately this is to winning better in gaming. I think you need to innovate. You need to come up with new things. You need to push the boundaries. It's an industry where it's so easy to copy other people. You've got to be at the forefront with new things. So we 100% buy the business reason to make sure you've got a diverse workforce, and also an inclusive culture that means people are going to offer that opinion and aren't just going to feel like they can't voice an opinion and they won't be listened to. So the fact that we start from that position, I think, is powerful, because there's just far more chance of things sticking, and it's not we're not just ticking a box. We are doing it. We are doing things for a good reason. a year ago, we launched a leadership team pledge, which was a statement to the business that diversity and inclusion mattered. And although that was to start with words, I think it did set down a good marker, and it set us out on a good path. And what followed from that was lots of learning for the business and for different teams, particularly for my team. We had lots of panels, lots of Q&As, lots of debate. Like, I think it's a difficult topic, diversity and inclusion. People, like me included, you almost feel nervous about talking about it because you don't want to make a mistake, you don't want to say the wrong thing. So it's definitely a difficult topic. Lucky at Sky Betting Game, we've had a few people in our people team who are really passionate about it and have really helped people learn about it and get their heads around it, and think like you definitely need champions to help you do that. So we've definitely been lucky at Sky Betting Gaming that we've done that. A couple of things to highlight. So we've overhauled our hiring processes. So we now are much better at writing job descriptions. So we're not going to attract like one type of person. We're going to attract a mix of people. We're much better at where those job descriptions go. We now hire and recruit and look in more places. We'll be more careful about getting a balanced shortlist for senior roles. And we also now use mass CVs. So yes, entry to the business, we're doing what we can to make sure that we're going to get as a diverse mix of people as possible. Help accelerate that a little bit. We've also we've done our own version of the government's Kickstart scheme. So in the UK, the government run a Kickstart scheme, which is aimed at getting young people from more deprived backgrounds into work. And so we've self-funded that in Leeds, and we're onboarding 10 people into a mix of roles in the autumn, which will come from, I guess, some of the more deprived areas of Leeds. I'm really excited about what that will do, and there's some great opportunities for some young people who wouldn't normally get those chances. So that's really exciting. And the final thing, which we're still in the middle of, but is definitely making a difference, is a mentoring scheme. So the senior team across the business are all mentoring people who are I guess less represented groups in SBG, and that's been interesting to help the senior people get a better understanding of other people's points of view, and that for me definitely I found that fascinating. So I know there'll be some good learnings, and that will definitely shape what we do next coming out of that program.
And how do these initiatives sort of expand or maybe apply between the two massive organizations post the merger? Is this does each organization operate their own culture, their own initiatives, or you try to apply them at a holistic level? Is there any sort of brainstorming and trying to figure out one holistic approach for both? Or
so we're definitely not trying to set I don't think it's possible. You can't set a culture. So there's definitely different cultures around different parts of the organization. Obviously Flutter's vast and is across lots of different countries, lots of different offices. So there's definitely different cultures in different parts of the business. But we're definitely sharing ideas and sharing what works. And I guess that's a massive advantage of being part of a big business, is there's lots of ideas. People are trying lots of things all the time, and so you're more likely to get hold of a good idea, because by the time they share it and pass it on, it's been sense checked. It's been kicked a little bit. So we've definitely benefited from some good ideas getting shared around the group.
And if I may ask you, when I had a podcast with Rafi, I also asked him about this, because you've been so deeply immersed in the Sky Betting business and culture. It's sort of your baby. You worked there for so many years. What are the main changes you've observed in the organization since the acquisition, since the merger? Because there's also changes that come with that. There are challenges, that there are positives, but what's the impact on the people? And as you said, maybe you can't enforce a culture, but on how the business feels when it's part of a big organization.
Yeah, there's definitely ups and downs that are attached to, I guess, going through a change and becoming part of a bigger business. There's been massive advantages for our people. There's lots of people who've been able to move on to different bigger roles, and in the future there'll be opportunities that just wouldn't have been there previously. Like we've seen that in the I guess just over 12 months that Flutter have owned Sky Betting Gaming. Lots of people have had some great opportunities that just wouldn't have existed before. Mm-hmm. Also seen some great sharing of ideas and knowledge. I guess it's a privileged position to be able to share ideas, but ultimately with a competitor and find out what they thought about things. So there's definitely some fascinating debates on strategy, debates on why things have happened, how they've happened, and idea sharing. So yeah, like 2 massive plus points there. One that's I guess a little bit more tricky and we're still working through is like what it means. Like SkyBetting Gaming's big growth period came as an independent business when we were backed by private equity, and that definitely bred a certain type of culture, and we want to make sure we hang on to the best parts of that. Like the fact that we felt like we could do anything and go and achieve anything, and we would ultimately remove any blockers or red tape. Like that culture is still there in the business. Now got to get used to like some of the red tape we might come up against, or some of the processes that are there like we need to adhere to. They're I guess they're part of being owned and being part of a big corporate. But there are some things where like we'll have to make changes, and we'll try and change how the group looks at things, because it changes how we work too much. So like it's definitely a balance, but there's been a lot of positives from the last year.
So, talking about being able to achieve anything, this is why I call this podcast Sky is Not a Limit, because you've proved repeatedly, that you're really aiming high. And this is something I also wanted to ask about, because I know you're product passionate. I know that the company is very product driven. And you had amazing sort of growth in 2020. I think it's 32% year on year, 975 million in revenues. If you were going to talk about sort of the most important, most critical product initiatives that really move the mark, what would they be from your perspective?
So we as a just general always on, we have an obsession about good customer experience. So we want customers to be able to easily use the products and the journeys that come with that. So I guess that's always there. We get the importance of marketing, so we've had some great campaigns over that 2020 period. We had a very good Cheltenham campaign that then happened just before everything stopped, but then some like great campaigns on gaming throughout the summer and into the winter, and also as sport came back. So like some great marketing campaigns. On the product side of things, I think we've really pushed on with our slots proposition and our football live proposition. So like some big product step forwards there over the course of the year, that definitely helped add to that success.
Right. If you were going to talk about the future, it's hard to say what's the next big thing, because I mean you're growing so fast and so aggressively, and then the merger, and where can a company go from there to a certain extent? US, other markets. What do you see as the key opportunities, and where the company can still go from where you are now?
Yeah, so obviously SkyBetting Gaming, we're just UK focused, but we've got lots of headroom in that market. Although we're quite big and one of the bigger players, there's still loads of, we've not got all the customers yet, so there's still a lot more headroom to go at. So we'll keep working on new things, keep trying to do exciting things for customers, and see where we end up. We've got a drive that we want to entertain, and we've also got a drive that we want to improve. So we'll keep trying to be better.
Right. Steve, I have lost you from video, but I was going to wrap up, so I didn't want to interrupt you, so we don't have to sort of edit. I'm not sure what happened here. Yeah, you've gone, but you were on the video for the most of the time, so I don't want to bother you with having to log in and out. So I just wanted to thank you very much for this time. I really appreciate you coming on the podcast. I think this will be very interesting for people to hear from you, and I know that you're not you're not taking part in so many media appearances, so even more grateful for that. And again, massive respect for organization, for everything that you guys doing, and we are all watching very closely and taking inspiration from all those great things. So well done, and thank you very much.